A message from our sponsor, Riverview Boat Store and Tug Service. Riverview Boat Store and Tug Service has been your trusted marine supplier servicing the upper Mississippi River for over 25 years. Since 1998, they have grown to be one of the largest inland boat stores. They are not just a delivery service. They have what you need in stock and ready to order. Their office and warehouse are centrally located in Bellevue, Iowa, and with their fleet of specially built delivery boats and refrigerated vehicles, Riverview can conveniently deliver groceries anywhere on the Upper Miss or the Illinois. Their green and white tugs can be found up and down the Mississippi, and they operate one of the largest lock assist businesses on the Upper Miss with 12 tugs servicing tows from Hastings, Minnesota to Clinton, Iowa. Their website now includes online grocery ordering with monthly specials available for review or download, and their fleet equipment information and vessel telephone numbers can also be found there. Like them on Facebook at Riverview Boat Store and Tug Service, and check out their website at www.riverviewboatstore.com. Welcome back to Between the Levees. I am joined today by one of the show's sponsors, Mr. Jeremy Putman with Riverview Boat Store and Tug Service. He is the owner and president, has been so since 2002, so we're just over 20 years. Jeremy?
Thanks for having me on, Tim. I'm happy to be here, honored to get a chance to talk to you on the podcast. I watch it often.
Do you have any favorite episodes or anything come to mind that you've seen?
Erin Howard's interview was probably one of my favorites. I really found her story fascinating. I really enjoyed listening.
She is far and away the leader on most views by the thousands, actually. Yeah, it's been an interesting experience. This is episode 66. So thank you, of course, for the support, and thank you for joining me here today.
And conveniently on 66.
Ain't that something? Tell me, sir, where were you born?
I was born in Dubuque, Iowa.
What did your parents do for a living?
My father worked on the river. My mother did work on the river. She actually had her tank note back in the 80s, and they divorced when I was quite young. So I am fourth generation in the river industry. My great grandfather Ralph actually was involved with log rafts on the Wisconsin River, and then my grandfather Eddie, him and his cousin, I believe it was, operated boats and barges on the river during the 1930s when the lock and dams were being built. And then my father worked for many different companies over his career.
What did he do out there?
My father started for Canal Barge Line when he was 12 years old, and he worked as a deckhand, tankerman. And then at the end of his career, he worked for Marquette when he retired.
Was he in the wheelhouse?
He was in the wheelhouse. He was in the wheelhouse from 1984 on, I believe it was.
Did you have any time on boats with him growing up?
I did. From the time I was old enough to see over the council, he'd get me a milk crate, and I would stand in the milk crate and run tugs with him. I had the honor of riding a boat with him in 99 to 2002. So I got some steering time with him. Got my license in 99, and I really enjoyed working with my father. Most people did. Really enjoyed working with him. He was a great guy. He wasn't the world's best pilot, but he was by far not the worst.
Well, were you a deckhand? You said you got your license. How did you accumulate all the hours?
So my story goes in 93, I went up to Newton Marine to apply for a job as a deckhand. Me and a kid in high school, we both had fake IDs saying we were 18. And we went up to get the job at Newton Marine, and it was during the flood, and they said they weren't hiring. So we went off and we got a job at a sawmill. I was working third shift at a sawmill. I was still a junior in high school. And that almost became my career. I started grading lumber and logs, and I really enjoyed doing it. And then when I finally did turn 18, the river was my calling. So I went back to trying to get a job at the river, and I ended up in St. Paul. And I ended up on a line boat first. I ended up on the Connie Nan, and it's so hard to believe that just that little stint on the Connie Nan, all the people I met that I still deal with on a regular basis that are customers on the boat store side and the tug service. Billy Thetford was the relief captain on the boat. Sammy Dickey was high captain on the boat. Kenny Stilts was a pilot. And a funny story with Kenny Stilts is when my parents divorced, I was 6 years old. I was six, my sister was four, and my youngest brother was two. And my mother had actually started dating another pilot, and he was pilot on the Alice Cusack, I believe it was. Kenny Stilts was the manager of that company, or port captain of that company. I remember we got on the boat at Lock 12 here in Bellevue, and my mom, her boyfriend, and my younger sister and younger brother, we rode all the way to St. Paul, and we ended up riding the boat all the way back down to like Baton Rouge. And Kenny got us a swimming pool. Kenny Stilts got us a swimming pool to put on the second deck, and what a neat experience. So to be working for Kenny, 12 years later, that was quite an experience. It was a complete 360.
What got your mom on the river?
So my father was 10 years older than my mother, and my dad, being third generation river guy, when they started dating, he was tanking barges, and he actually started a company called TL Putman Tankerman Service. And him and my mother would actually go and do tankerman work together on barges, doing shore tanking. I remember seeing, when I was younger, I remember her having the credential with the thumbprint on the back. It was a black and white card, plastic laminated card. I remember seeing that when I was younger.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood growing up in Dubuque, up until, I guess, you hit the lumberyard.
So actually, I grew up in Bellevue, 24 miles south of Dubuque. Had a pretty normal childhood growing up. We played outside every day. We came in when the street lights turned on, and I was raised by a single father. He ended up with custody. He had a child from a previous marriage, and myself and my younger sister. So we grew up in Bellevue. Younger brother, he lived all over the country, moving around, and my mother actually ended up having a fourth child. So Dan grew up in Kansas and Colorado. So I wasn't really close with my youngest brother. Still to this day, I mean, I call him and wish him a happy birthday, and we see each other probably every couple of years, but it's not like my brother Bill, who I talk to almost on a daily basis. Which he was when we bought this company, my brother Bill was the guy that put us on the map. He's a marketing genius, PR genius, and he just, I was sad that he only stayed with me for 6 months, and he went back to his regular job. A little more professional for him to have a job title and wear a suit and tie to work.
And you said your father was running boats when you were growing up?
Yeah, so Gary Newt and Eldon Newt. Eldon would have been Gary's father. They had the fleeting service in Dubuque, Newt Marine. And my dad, Bob Mina, who's another local pilot, and Gary Newt came up with the idea of doing lock assist at Lock 12. And this was in like 82 or 83. And the lock assist with a tugboat just had not been done at that time. No one would believe that, hey, we'll put you on the wall. And when Bob and my dad were talking about to Gary and said that, we'll charge $25 for a lock assist. And Gary said, no one will ever pay you guys $25 for a lock assist. They tried it, and people loved it. And now we run one of the largest lock assist businesses on the Mississippi River.
You said you grew up with a single dad. How often was he out of the house? Did his work distract him from his children?
So in the early years, he would just run down to the lock and dam and put the boat on the wall and then come back home. He'd be gone maybe an hour. The business partner that he brought in '98 with the boat store, his name was Don Dixon. And Donnie has been part of my life my entire life. Donnie would stay at our house when he had to work, or my dad actually built him an apartment out in our garage. So Donnie would have his own living quarters to come in and out. So Donnie's always been part of my life. And when when I bought into the business, originally with Donnie and Jeff Kissel, uh, it was a happy family for the three of us, but I was considerably younger than them, and I wanted to work, 100 hours a week. I wanted to grow this business, and they wanted to work 8 hours a day and just collect a paycheck. So it wasn't long, and I was on the prowl to expand the business. And the first thing I did was I ended up buying Donnie out. Donnie stepped away from the marine business for 3 years. Then he ended up buying a tug and started doing lock assist at Lock 11. And so Donnie and I, for a couple of years, it was kind of odd. It was kind of weird. I bought him out of the business, and it wasn't like that same like brotherly feeling that we had for all those years. Today, Donnie and I are as close as ever. He was my dad's best friend, and when my dad passed away 10 years ago, kind of left Donnie in a little bit of a lull, I guess you'd want to say. That he lost his best friend. I lost my father, who was my best friend. And but yeah, Donnie and I talk quite regularly, probably once a week. And then the other business partner, Jeff, uh, once again, he was 20 years older than I am. I wanted to work 18, 20 hours a day. Jeff wanted to work 8 hours a day and collect a paycheck. So I talked to my wife, and she was fine with it. And we ended up buying Jeff out in '03, I think it was, or '04. And we had 100% of the business at that point. And then from there, the business is growing from groceries to lock assists, and from there, the rest is history.
Well, speaking of history, tell me, give me a rundown on the development of this business from, I think you said your father started it.
So yeah, so in 1981, my father started the Bellevue Boat Store, my mother, and that 24 hours a day stress, I think that was what caused the stress in their marriage of, being on call 24 hours a day. In 1983, he couldn't get financing for the company. The marine business was way down. Several companies had filed bankruptcy, and the local grocery store took the business over. They ran it for a couple years, found out that 24 hours on call was for them. So the business closed up for a while. Modits would do groceries. They'd run them down to the lock. If say like uh, a boat would order groceries and need something run down to the lock, they would fill the order Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then in '98, my dad and uh, Donnie decided they wanted to open the boat store business back up. And so they opened it up, and they got on the marine radio the very first day and said, "Hey, Riverview Boat Store is open." And Kenny Martin was coming up on the Kathy Ellen, and he said, "I'll drop you an order off at the lock." And that was their first order, their very first day. Um, so the business has been very successful in the grocery business. When I told my wife that, when I found out that Donnie and Jeff were looking for a business partner, I told my wife that I wanted to do this, and we were living in St. Paul at the time, and she said absolutely not at first, and I convinced her that Mark Judd over on the Illinois River ran such a great business over there. When we ran the Illinois River, we get groceries from the Hennepin Boat Store, and Mark would bring the groceries out, and he treated everybody just phenomenal. He treated every deckhand like they were a five-star person. He was just great to the entire crew. That's how I've always treated my business as well. I didn't care if you were a captain, didn't care if you were a deckhand engineer. I treated everybody, with priority and respect that they deserve. That's how Mark ran his business. And little did I know how much work was actually involved in the both. Mark always made it look so flawless, and if you had a last minute grocery order I add on, it was never a problem. If a deckhand needed to get a COD added to the order, it was never an issue to call in and get that added. And Mark just always made it seem so flawless. We're dealing with 8 or 10 grocery orders at one time. It can be quite challenging, keeping everything in order and getting the product on the right order. Sometimes the deckhands will call in for a COD and not even know what boat they're on. We had one last night call in and didn't even know what boat he was on. So yeah, it can be challenging from time to time.
Well, give me a company profile. How many boats do you operate? I know we covered some of it in the advertisement we're running for you, but just a
So
general rundown.
currently, right now, we have 14 tugs and 4 delivery boats. We've got 3 vessels that are in rehaul right now in Morgan City, Louisiana. Got one that will be out at the end of July, coming back up the upper. Um, Currently, we're leasing 2 vessels from Upper Mississippi, leading out of Buffalo, just to meet our shortage in horsepower till our 3 boats in Morgan State are done. We're hoping to have the second one of the 3 out by May of next year, and then the third one hoping to have it out by February of 2025.
Well, how has business been since you took over?
So when we took the business over, uh, when I bought Donnie and Jeff out, we were doing like $200,000 a year in grocery sales. And I brought my brother in. He was living in Arizona at the time, and I said, "Hey, I could really use your help." And he kind of wanted to move back to Iowa and hang out with his brother. And so I brought him back, and within 6 months, we hit $1 million in grocery sales. And my brother was this cute little blonde-haired kid, blue-eyed. He would get on there and charm those cooks, and the next thing you know, we were doing 10 orders a day for a while. And we would load up with groceries, and I felt like I was Larry Barnes. We'd load up 4 grocery orders in the boat. We would take off, and we would be delivering groceries over in Lamont. We'd hit Peoria. We'd hit St. Louis. We'd grab an order would come in while we're delivering those, and we'd deliver that in say Burlington or Keithsburg or something like that. When we would leave for a delivery, we wouldn't know if we were going to be gone 2 days, a week, whatever it took to get all the orders delivered. And that's when we came up with the idea of putting generators and freezers in the boats, and having a refrigerated van so we could load up like 4 grocery orders and take off. My son, he's 21. He kind of wishes the business was still that way. Um, Things kind of flowed off a little bit when brother Bill left, but we're still plenty busy, and we probably couldn't take care of all the customers like it was back in the day. Just not enough time in the day to deliver all of those.
Well, you said you're married and have at least one son. Where'd you meet your wife, and how many kids do you have?
I have one child, Alex. He's active in the business. He runs our shipyard part of the business down in Morgan City, and he oversees all the vessel repairs. My wife and I have been married for it's our 24th year. Uh, I had a roommate in college, and I did community college for a short stint. And my roommate introduced me to her on my 21st birthday. So Julie and I got along great, hit it off, got married about a year and a half later. Another year and a half later, our son came, and here we are today. Just have the one boy, and we do have a nephew and a cousin that also work in the business. So it is continuing to be a family run business.
Did any of your siblings follow your father and you into the industry?
Well, it's kind of interesting. My mother and father both married 3 times, and my father had a child that he didn't even know about the night before he left for Vietnam. Uh, he ended up fathering a child and didn't even know it. We were at this has probably been 20 years ago. We are at a family reunion, and this guy came up that kind of looked like all of us, and he worked for Arco. He worked on the river, and he come up and he said that I'm Terry's I'm Terry's son, Troy. And my dad couldn't believe it when he said who the mother was and whatnot. And this was 100 miles away from where we were. That there was no mistaking that Troy was part of the family. And then my next oldest sibling, Terry Jr., he worked on the river his whole life, deckhand, tankerman. Uh, so both of them worked on the river. My dad's brother ended up buying his tankerman's business, Scott, and so he worked on the river his whole life. Worked at Midwest Tankerman, and their son, Scott and Dory's son, Sean, worked for us for about 10 years. He's now the pilot on the Co-op Vanguard. So still got lots of family involved in this. It's definitely a family affair.
Did your father ever share any stories about Vietnam? What did he do over there? What branch?
My father was my father got hurt over there. Uh, he was infantry. He never really discussed any of that with me. He talked about it in great detail with my older brother, but he never really shared any of that. He was involved in Hamburger Hill. He was in a couple Time Life books, but he was never proud of what he did. Just never really divulged any of that to me. Um, I read the books that Time Life put out, and said about what infantry and what he was all in, but never really never really knew much about it. One of his deckhands last week sent me a picture of his tombstone at the Rock Island Arsenal. I didn't even know my father had a tombstone. Um, I had when he passed away, I had him cremated, and we never did any services for him. And I never knew that there was a tombstone. My sister said, "Oh, you knew that?" And no, I was shocked as heck. So shout out to Ray Como and his wife for that. A deckhand my father had in 1992 or 93. So he found me on Facebook and he just asked. He said, "Are you related to Terry Putman?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Yeah." And so it's pretty neat to see that on Memorial Day.
What does the future of the business look like? Are you looking to expand? Are you at max capacity now? What's it looking like?
Well, with my son coming on board, and we're always looking to expand the fleet. We'd like to start getting into some bigger horsepower. Our biggest boat right now is 1,500 horsepower. We have two. We'd really like to start getting into some 2000s, doing some chill runs. I see that as the industry changes, that 15 barge tows out of St. Paul don't happen anymore. Gonna be smaller tows coming out of there. The river's getting narrower. There's less money for dredging. There's less places to go with the dredged material. I see these smaller tows being the way of the future, and I think that's where we're going to expand next. Is we're going to start getting into the line haul business.
Running tows yourself?
We do not run any tows ourselves. If a company calls and says, "Hey, they got a barge that needs to go to St. Louis or something," we'll grab it and go. But we don't have any active line haul routes ourselves.
Is that where you're looking to expand? Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, that's where we want to expand next. Is we want to start getting into short runs, stuff like that, rock runs, anything that we can start to expand the business and start to do more than just groceries and lots.
Anything else to share about your business, about your life?
Well, uh, business, like I said, it's been good for us. It's been a good business. I'm looking forward to the next generation taking it over. My sister's son, Colton, he's been with us now for just under a year. He's 18 years old. Looking forward to him and Alex, taking this further than I can take it. I've got a great team of men and women. The ladies in the office that run everything. They're the behind the scenes. No one ever hears from them or sees them, so they do a great job for us. And then, the men that run our tugs. We've got about 75 employees on the tug side and about a dozen employees on the boat store side. So it won't be long, and hopefully we'll break that 100 employee mark. It's a great accomplishment.
Well, Jeremy, I think that just about does it for my questions, my friend. I do appreciate your time this morning.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim.
This has been a production of Where You At Studios, LLC.